They knew everything. Not in the boastful way of tyrants, nor the arrogant confidence of youth, but in the quiet, terrifying stillness of true omniscience. The Solari had no myths, no questions left unanswered, no holes in the fabric of their reality. For eons, they had charted every law of the universe, down to the quantum dance of particles beneath stardust. They spoke in mathematics and sculpted thought from light. To them, the universe was not mysterious, it was solved. When they found us, they did not celebrate. They observed. Humans arrived like static across a perfect signal, noisy, volatile, unpredictable. We cried in joy. We shouted in grief. We sang without purpose, created without utility. We didn't make sense. And worse, we didn't care to. The Solari assigned observers to our worlds, built listening posts in orbit, sent drones that hovered above our homes and playgrounds and battlefields. They harvested terabytes of sensory data. The way our faces crumpled when we remembered someone gone, the chaos of our dreams, the shivers down our spines during symphonies. They documented, but didn't understand. Species exhibits irrational behaviors, one noted. Emotive response overrides survival logic, another recorded. But they kept watching, and slowly something changed. It began with a girl, 9 years old, alone in the woods behind her home, clutching the lifeless form of her dog struck by a ground car. She held him tightly, weeping into his fur. A Solari drone hovered nearby, recording from the treetops. But then, the girl didn't cry. She sang, softly, shakily, a lullaby from her mother. Her voice cracked. Her chest heaved. But she kept singing. Through grief. Through heartbreak. The Solari drone stuttered mid-flight. Its internal harmonics warped for 3.4 seconds. It had experienced, not a malfunction, but resonance. Emotional resonance. It sent a signal back to the collective. Observed moment. Unquantifiable. Marked anomaly. More anomalies followed. A human sculptor shattered his own masterpiece, not out of rage, but to begin again. A dancer broke her ankle mid-performance, then bowed through the pain, smiling with tears in her eyes. An old man in hospice whispered forgiveness to an empty chair. None of it made sense to the Solari, but it moved them, though they denied it. "We are not moved," said the high cognizant. "We are attentive." But the changes were visible. Their calculations began to bend. Equations once rigid with certainty showed fluctuations. Their light forms, once sharp and symmetrical, shimmered unexpectedly in softer hues. They began to ask strange questions in their shared consciousness. What does longing feel like? What is the purpose of regret? Why do they laugh even when dying? They had studied all there was to know. But now they began to wonder what they had missed. So they came down in person, not drones, to Earth. Not as conquerors, but as listeners. A delegation landed in New Tokyo. Another in Nairobi. One more in a small Appalachian town where bonfires were still lit at sunset and teenagers still wrote poetry in the backs of notebooks. A Solari stood in a kitchen while a grandmother baked bread for her family. It observed the woman's face as she hummed an old wartime tune, notes wrapped in memory and sorrow. Another sat in a music hall where a violinist played a single note over and over, his fingers shaking. Not perfect, not clean, but alive, raw, flawed, beautiful. One more visited a dying boy in hospice. The child asked the Solari a single question. "Will you remember me when I'm gone?" The Solari had no answer. It shattered their consensus. Memory for them was archival, functional, stored and retrieved. But remembering, truly feeling someone who is no longer, that was something different. Something deeper. Something they had no word for. They built a word. They called it empatherian, the shape of a thing felt but never known. It became their obsession. They stopped asking, "How do you know?" and started asking, "How do you feel?" And for the first time, their knowledge wasn't enough. They began to change. One Solari carved a sculpture, not with lasers but with hands. It trembled. Another wrote a lullaby in imperfect tonal chords. It wept. Some Solari merged with human communities, not to study but to live, to plant gardens, to dance under storms, to mourn beside us. They no longer broadcast sterile reports. They told stories. They stopped knowing and started feeling. And in doing so, they began to understand that humans don't seek truth for power. We seek it for meaning. We don't survive because we're logical. We survive because we love. Because we grieve. Because we ache and laugh and hope in defiance of all certainty. In time, the Solari added our emotion to their sciences, and it changed everything. Starships designed with intuitive controls responding to emotional cues. Healing chambers that adapted to the patient's memory of comfort, not just their biology. Galactic diplomacy built not on laws but shared vulnerability, the stories of losses and fears, traded like currency. The universe became richer, not because we gave them facts, but because we gave them depth. We didn't show them how to know. We showed them how to feel. And now, when Solari children are born, they are given more than data. They're given a whisper, a story, a song, a memory of someone long gone who once made them feel something real. That is their first lesson. Not gravity, not light, but empathy. Because in a universe that knows everything, it is feeling that makes it worth exploring.